Thank you, Tuan. Good morning, Douglas County. My name is Kelly Robinson, and I am a commissioner of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. We are now about to enter into our Economic Development and Tax Abatement quarterly meeting. Today is August 24th, 2023. We're going to go ahead and get started. This meeting should not go that long, but we've probably got a couple of topics we've got to cover for the record. I want to go around the room and make sure I at least got enough of us here as a quorum to have this conversation. So I'll start myself to introduce to my fellow peers here that are on the call. Please say your name for the record, just so it's codified accordingly. I'll start with me, Kelly Robinson, chair of this committee, present.
Mark Alcaraz, District 4 Commissioner, Vice Chair, present.
Chris,
Chris Humphrey, Development Authority of Douglas County, present.
Greg Baker, Tax Commissioner, Douglas County.
What's enough to get is Mr. Balfour there?
He has not signed on yet. I've been trying to reach him, but I haven't been able to reach him yet.
Breezy?
Breezy Straighten, Development Authority of Douglas County.
Thank you. Is anybody from the administration, such as Dr. Corbin or Tiffany Stewart-Stanley, out there? Yes, not. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have enough to conduct this meeting. The intent of this meeting, again, in the spirit of transparency, this will primarily not focus on economic development today, but more importantly about the tax abatement, which is the exchange between us and corporate citizens who come into the county. And we just want to keep an eye on taxes. We talk about taxes and millage rate. Obviously, the Board of Commissioners are in an active conversation regarding that, but also applies to the corporate citizens as well. And every now and then, certain set of corporate citizens get certain inducements and certain incentives to relocate here. And we want to make sure that that proper exchange is occurring, and we just want to have some accountability accordingly. So, Chris, you want to lead us?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And good morning, everyone. And forgive me, I was scheduled this, and then at the same time, my wife scheduled some cleaning being done in the house. So Stanley Steamer's in the background. So hopefully that's not a distraction to everyone. But to Commissioner Robinson's point, yes, our role is to focus on the creation of a sustainable local economy, and we do that through the attraction of industry into the community, support of existing industries in the community, and a lot of that through the efforts of workforce development, making sure that they're getting all the resources that they could possibly have on that side of the fence. And so in that attraction mode, in some instances, it does necessitate the offering of incentives, and some of those incentives do include property tax incentives. In those particular situations, we look at the number of jobs that are being created by that entity, the average wage of the employees that they will hire, and the number of employees they hire, and the capital investment that they make. And we also focus on targeted sectors. So we have a segment of targeted sectors that we focus on with our incentives to attract those entities into the community. And we created those target sectors about 6 years ago, and we just recently updated those. So on an annual basis, once a company begins the property tax incentive process, there is a compliance mechanism that goes into effect. Every April 1st, they have to report on the status of their job creation, wages, and investment at the facility. And we collect the documentation that verifies all that information to ensure that they are in compliance. All of the companies that are currently on a plan are at different schedules and different times within their schedules, and these schedules vary. Some start at 100% exemption in their first year, and then start, paying taxes over the balance of the 10-year program. And these are typically 10-year programs. Some are 100% for the first couple of years, and then they phase in their taxes. So I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can see. This will be a little bit of repeat from our prior meeting. However, we want to emphasize kind of some of the upcoming projects that companies that will be coming on a tax incentive. So,
guys, can you silence your phones if you're not speaking? Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, thank you. So with that, I'm sure everyone can see my screen right now. These are some of the active projects that are currently on a tax incentive plan. Some of which, as I mentioned, are in various stages, and they are starting to wind down their plan. So BioLife, Gordon Food Service, KeHE, Medline, there's 2 from Medline, 2 from Southwire, Stitch Fix, Switch, which is one of our data centers in their phase 1 of their project, and West Rock. And so what you see is in the various columns, the capital investment. The bolded capital investment is what they have invested to date. The parentheses is basically what we call their bond cap. And so they've got within that room of investment to be able to invest and still be a participant in the tax incentive plan. So everything in bold is what's subject to the property tax incentive, and everything that's in parentheses is basically the room for investment. If they are above that, then they have to pay taxes on that. Same within jobs created. These are the jobs that they created, and then where they are as it relates to their commitment on jobs. Some of them are below, some of them are above, and you'll see that varying through, and I'll explain that once we get to the end of this. And then the next one is the hourly wage. Same thing, bold is where they are. The parentheses was part of their commitment for average wage. I think all except for one maybe are above their committed average wages that they have. And then finally is what we call the performance percentage. And so there's a threshold that basically says, like, if you create 100 jobs, but you only hit 80, it's not to say that we're penalizing you for the 20 jobs, but you have a threshold to achieve. Same thing on the average wage, the same thing on the investment. There's thresholds built within there that gives basically some flexibility. Things change in the economy. There may be more efficiencies. You may not need as many employees, or maybe you end up paying more. Things happen. So there's always some balance that's provided within that. And so we give that an 80% threshold. And so what you'll see is, whereas some may have been maybe below on jobs, they were above on average wage. And so the last column is really kind of where we look at to show true compliance. And so as you see there, you have some that are 93%. Looks like one that's 375%. So they really exceeded, their projections when they were announced that they were coming to the community. Any questions on any of that?
That's good. It's how many total jobs, Chris, has been created with the existing roster? Total.
I don't have that total number right here. I could easily, maybe somebody pull a calculator, but
I'm just curious.
Yes, sir.
I think about dollars invested, and I think about jobs. I mean, it's like a quick and dirty. That's all I was trying to do.
Top of my head looks like a few thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yep. So on this next slide, this is showing basically all those companies and where they are currently on the schedule. As I mentioned, they're 10-year schedules. So if we look at these particular companies and where they were in 2022, so Southwire, we'll just take the top one, Southwire number 2, because they have multiple plans. They were in year 7 in 2022, and they were paying 80% of the property taxes due. And so that's what that means. And so as you kind of go down, you'll see some that are in teal. So those are incentive plans that have been approved but have not yet gone into action yet. And so Switch has 3 different plans. So they have 3 different 10-year plans. And so right now, as of 2022, 2023, they were only in for building 1. In 2024, they will go into effect with building 2. And so each of these are kind of on varying scales. And then once building 3 is ready, then that program will commence. And so you can just see kind of down this sheet, where they are. That's the first number is the year in their plan that they're in. And so Katie's in year 6. And then the parentheses is showing what percentage of property taxes they are paying. So these are mostly discounts on property taxes in their plan. And as I mentioned, each plan was a little different. And so I see in the chat, the jobs represented by the prior sheet were 2,386.
Thank you.
The other piece that we wanted just to point out is we have, as some of these plans are in various stages, some will be rolling off. And so you'll see a couple there that are rolling off in 2024. They're hitting their 10-year of it. And so they're rolling off, but we also have some that will be rolling on. And so those are Foxhall, Microsoft, Norma. Norma's real property actually started this year. Her personal property will start next year. Sam's Club will start next year as well, along with Sam's Club will start next year. Home Chef started this year. Zoetis will start next year. And I'll talk a little bit about Zoetis. They are the world's leader in animal vaccinations and pharmaceuticals. They have acquired an existing building in Douglasville that they will begin operation in. That plan is a bit unique. And so when you see their year 1 being next year, it shows a 0%. They actually will be paying the existing taxes that are on the building. And so that is about, Greasy, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it's about 500 or so thousand that they will be paying in tax on the building. And then they will have an incentive on the additional investment that they're making. And then at a certain year, that building tax will fall off because their taxes will start to exceed that. So they'll have a ramp up schedule, but we wanted to make sure that with them buying an existing building, they were not pulling dollars off the tax digest. So we try and make sure we're only having additions into the tax digest and not removals from the tax digest. And so that is a representation of that, where Zoetis will continue the existing taxes, but then get the incentive on their additional investment. So with that concludes those 2.
No, thank you for that. Hold on, I just took a couple questions or a couple of commentary. Can we get a summary? Again, you gave me the summary on the total jobs. Can we get a summary also on total dollars invested and total taxes paid for the collective group in the program?
Sure. It's actually, we were talking about that yesterday afternoon on the taxes side.
Yeah.
About pulling that, and that's actually something that I want to be able to work more closely with the tax commissioner and assessor's office on. We have some insight into some of that, but we don't have the totality of it. And so we want to work with them on kind of creating that form to be able to see exactly their taxes paid in these. But yeah, and we can quickly run the projected investments for them.
If you can get it to the full committee, that'll be fine.
Sure.
My last question now, you to my colleague, is regarding so there's 7,000 businesses in Douglas County, 5 in the county, and about 2,000 in the city. Is that close enough, Chris?
Yeah, that's about right.
That's about right. And how many companies are we representing here? I'm trying to put it all in context.
Sure.
We have conversations we hear out there about we're giving tax incentives to these corporations, but relative to all the businesses that are here, can you give us some context?
15.
15 out of 7,000
Yes, sir.
are part of this program. So it's not that many. I mean, it's a rounding error in the context of the larger number. But still, we want to see what the taxes are, and that will just help our conversation as we go forward. Thank you for that clarity. Commissioner Alcaraz, go ahead, sir.
Chris, just a quick question, because as Commissioner Robinson stated, we're doing this in full transparency because we are looking at property taxes and the millage rate. And I know if there's some looking at this, I could just foresee a question that, looking at the percentages that some are paying, say the year 2, 3, and 4, let's just say Stitch Fix for an example. They're in 2024, they're going to be year 4, and yet they've still not paid any of the percentage. At what point do some of these, maybe this would be great for our next meeting, is if you could have this expanded so that they can see, okay, at what point do some of these start paying back the taxes? Yeah, because, like we say, I'd see like Midline, they're in year 9, they're paying 70% of their taxes. But, just for transparency so our citizens can see it and they understand the incentives that we give them. Not only that, when do some of these start paying and when do these start jumping up, such as, say, Medline 2017, they're jumping year 5, 20%, year 6, 40, year 7, 60. I understand that path line of how that's going to fall, but just for transparency for our citizens.
Sure thing. And there's another point for everyone to kind of consider as well. These are just the ones that, we offer a property tax incentive to. We don't offer them to all of them, or not all take them up. And so I'll give an example. We have 2 data centers that are going in, and they are not going to be on a property tax incentive plan. So those investments will represent about $300 million between the 2 of them. I think it's $300 million just on their real property, and then everything else is personal property on top of that. Those are coming in 100% taxed. And so, those are companies that we worked with, but just did not get a property tax incentive. And so there's this picture about this subset of companies, but then there's the broader picture that doesn't really show up in our compliance reporting that also are significant contributors to the digest.
Good clarity. I appreciate that distinction. So to that point, we see the layout. How about collections? How is that working? Are they timely? Are they good? I'm not trying to call anything out, but can maybe the tax commissioners or someone say, do we have any anomalies or challenges?
Commissioner Baker, I'll defer to you.
Yeah, there's been challenges and there's still challenges. I don't think we have a detail, and Steve's not on yet. He's in an assessors meeting, executive session. And I've talked to him before because we've talked about this, so I'll talk a little bit about it. But our questions was getting the information in a timely manner. This is the first I've seen this chart. I'd love to get a copy of this so that I can give a copy to Steve also.
I'm here, yeah.
Okay. He made it. But we're kind of, I'll just speak for me. I get my data from Steve. So, and then we go over this stuff. But I think we need to both get information in a timely manner. I think the charts you did today are great. And we can go over them. But I know for me, I'm kind of lost on, and you kind of clarified it today, because my thinking was, okay, if you were supposed to get 100 people employed at $30 an hour, you weren't in compliance if you didn't do so. But in your explanation, they're in compliance because they exceeded their goals, which I guess is all right. That's up to the Board of Commissioners. That's their realm of doing whatever they want to. But it's a good information that you just presented today. So I'm happy that you presented it, but I'd love to get a copy. And I know Steve would love to get a copy, because then we can further evaluate it. And I'll let Steve answer what he needs.
Please join us.
All these properties are valued and they would have gotten an assessment notice. So they're on the digest and calculated at the abatement percentage they should be. So their notices should have their value at 100%. This is transparent to us. We value properties for what they are, but the portion of abatement is calculated and sent to the tax assessor's office. But so they are all on the digest.
They're all on the digest. So, got it. They're on the digest right now. So,
Right.
Is there a separation in either one of three? Can clarify. There's payment in lieu of taxes, and then there's taxes. Chris, can you help us just for the broader public and also a primer back for me? Is that distinguished here, or it doesn't really matter?
From my perspective, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to get off mute. Technically, they all are payments in lieu of taxes. The development authority holds title to the property as a tax exempt entity. And so they are making pilot payments in essence on these. The other aspect of things that we think about, and these pilot payments are going to the tax commissioner, not coming to the development authority. The other piece that we think about when we have kind of used the term pilot payments, we've always thought about it in terms of what we were thinking about on one of the prior Foxhall iterations and what we have with Google, where it's more of a set schedule of what those payments are versus the valuation of like everyone else's, all the others are done. So they're all technically pilots, but it's just some are looked at more of a fixed schedule and one's more of a discounted tax.
No, I mean, again, appreciate the answer. And that brings clarity to the whole point and how we're looking at this. So it varies. And again, these are out of 7,000 companies inside of Douglas County's footprint. This handful, roughly, like I said, 15 of them have a different type of set of taxation. Last question I have for this really quickly is the companies that are currently, you already talked about the companies that are currently pending, correct? Those ones that have been noticed. I do have one question, I don't know if it's here, but there was something on TV, so this is public, about what was it, a data center? I forgot what it's called. It was on Channel 2 yesterday. Can you get clarity on what that is? Was that just something somebody put out there? What was that, Chris? Because they talked about Douglas County.
Yeah, I didn't see the story, but I believe I know what it's referring to. There is a company that is looking to rezone 95 acres to build a data center campus. That company, because of the scale of their planned development, it is subject to what we call a development of regional impact. And that is something that is that flows through the regional commissions. And so they have to file, and that's a public filing, to show the impact that the project will have on road infrastructure, the community, so forth. And so it goes through a process that impacts GDOT is brought into the field, planners are brought into the field, and it has to go through that before they can file for rezoning. And so because it's such a significant investment, I believe the Atlanta Business Chronicle picked it up first and ran a story on it. And I believe that's where the news story is kind of emitting from as well, is that filing. I'm assuming that those are the same two.
Yeah, and the mention was off of Riverside.
Yes.
And that's obviously, that really caught my attention. Again, different character areas. I know that's it was designed that way to be able to pursue and try to attract people within that sector. But if it does come to pass, how many data centers would that be total within our footprint?
It's a great question. It's kind of hard to keep up right now. We're in a bit of a flurry of requests for data centers. So,
yeah, I thought we were around 8 or 9.
Yeah, maybe. I think it might be higher than that now, with where we are. But yeah, there's a number of them that are out there, and yeah, this is one that we were informed about because we're actually looking at the property for something else and found out that it was under contract. So, so they're going through a process. They have not been approved, so that is not to say that they are coming. They still have to go before the city planning and zoning board and the city council before they get zoning for that.
All right, so this is in the city of Douglasville proper.
Correct.
All right, got it. That's distinguishing difference. So, but we're one development authority, and you represent both municipalities. Is that accurate? With a joint participation?
That is correct.
That's important. So we allow them to do one experience, and you can pick your land where you want it. But we try to be consistent. It's the point to be consistent between the jurisdictions, that what we offer in one jurisdiction is the same in the other.
Yeah, that is very key, and that was part of Douglas County's biggest issue in years past, is that there was not alignment. It made things very challenging for prospects as they were considering investing here.
Yeah, co-opetition versus competition. Got it. Versus pitting us against each other. Got it. My last one is this is a side topic, but somewhat tangential. Development fees, impact fees. What do you think about that, Chris?
That's been a topic that's come up a few times in different arenas, whether it's come up in topics at the city or whether it's come up in topics at the county. This was a very controversial topic in years past, but I do think that there are several impacts that are being made on the community, and we've got to make sure that we've got the right resources to support public infrastructure here. I'm not an expert on that space, but it's definitely worth the investigation.
Yeah, I think when I came on board, 15 years ago, we were trying to attract people, right? We're waking up to say we want to grow up to the next level. But I think at least in the past decade, we've made, and especially with your lease, we've done a great run. And so it's like, okay, we have nothing to prove. Look at the roster. So at some point, it's not about I need to attract you. Like, no, this is impact now. Sometimes it's lost leadership. You give up certain things just to attract the brand. But at some point, it's like, okay, guys, this thing getting torn up, right? At some point, we have to maybe revisit that exchange. That's all. I'm not pushing anything. I'm not advocating, but I keep my eye on that right there. Like, okay, at some point now, we don't have to be as thirsty to attract. You've already done it. We've got a pipeline that's deep. And at some point, like, okay, guys, they need to give a little bit more out here. The value is us. The value is the land. And so how we get that exchange, we should be thoughtful about it accordingly. But I'll leave that at that. Commissioner Alvarez, get in this conversation. What do you see, sir?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because one thing that has been brought to my attention recently is the tap-in fees. How high a lot of developers think that our tap-in fees are. And so that is a huge deterrent for them, because, they said it's kind of hard to keep things within reason in their development plan and their funding, when then all of a sudden they're surprised with, which of course, this is WSA and all, but the tap-in fees that it's charging for some of these developments. I was recently told one was asked about, $500,000 for a tap-in fee. And he was like, wow, that probably might be a game changer there for me. But, so I agree. At what point do our development fees and, all of a sudden start to impact some of those that we might could attract to come to Douglas County?
All right, Chris, so this is me and Commissioner Alvarez, but this is a good point. Help us out. So to the east, we've got infrastructure. Right. I mean, so we just in the West, they're building the infrastructure stuff. So does that weigh in on this? Because again, it's like, okay, there's a balancing act. You don't want people to pay. You don't want to get in for free now. It's a cost to do business. Put that in place, but they're going to pass that on through, and maybe they can't even make the numbers because we have that. But again, they're in the business of it. That's what they're supposed to invest. But at the same point, we're trying to make it easy to do business with Douglas, but do you want to be that easy? We have value. How do we balance that conversation, guys? Chris, weigh in.
I think it's worth just the investigation of knowing what your peers are doing.
Yep.
And so that's, knowing
In other counties?
Understanding what's happening in the market today. And then you gotta, if you see that you have a gap, that something you need to solve for, what are your peers doing, and doing the best analysis of that to determine which way to go. As we talked about, as you mentioned, there's 7,000 businesses. So, we're talking about 15 of those 7,000, but there are a number of developments, that are in the works, that are in the process that we don't even touch, we don't even see. And so, it could be viewed as a deterrent, to say, well, we'll go somewhere else. But that's why I say it's probably important to know, what our peers are doing, in looking at where the trajectory of the community is headed, and if some of those communities are kind of already there, or are we looking at communities that aren't quite where we are yet? And that might be in some instances where some will opt to go in those locations. And so it's just it's an analysis that I think needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So that everybody can be confident about whatever decision is made, whether it's to do them or not to do them.
Let's get a little study it. I understand. Commissioner Alvarez, anything else, sir?
No.
All right. Chris,
Quick question, Commissioner.
Yes. Tax Commissioner, please jump in.
Mr. Humphrey and Breezy, you can join in too. When I'm at meetings, the citizens are always saying, we got a lot of warehouses, but they're looking for restaurants, other things that they want to bring to the community. Are you guys working on any of that you can talk to, since we're live, so the community can know you're working on more than just I know where you are, and I know you guys are looking at stuff, but could you tell the community some of the things that you're looking to bring to Douglas County? Because I'm sure the commissioners here, when they do their workshops and go meet their constituents too, they're interested in what else are Douglas County going to bring, because they always looking at restaurants, Trader Joe's. I mean, and you and I talked about this before, but if you got anything that you can tell the community that you're working on, other things that you look at other than just warehouses, because that's what they want to hear. That's the biggest complaint. We got a lot of warehouses, but what else are we bringing into the community?
Yeah, sure thing. This is a handful of things, but I'll start with, we have targeted sectors. So advanced manufacturing, and that's metal fabrication, aerospace, and automotive supply. We focus on technology professional services. So that's the recruitment of what you would call your more white collar, type positions, which not many people wear white collars anymore. And then life sciences and healthcare is another segment that we are focused on. So projects that are within that life science, biotechnology space, and healthcare. And from a healthcare standpoint, it's also looking at healthcare services, not just kind of on the production side. And then a category focused on media and entertainment. We are not directly going out to recruit restaurants. It's just, it's too big of a space for us to be able to do, and it's very difficult. The restaurant retail arena is really driven off of the demographics that's solely centered around population and household income, and the density therein. And so they're looking at all those things to kind of make those decisions. So where we try and focus our attention is on higher wage earning jobs in the community that brings more of those people here, that hopefully then entices more of them to live here and spend their dollars here. So that's where we spend most of our time. But alongside of that, we focus on real estate development opportunities. And so the Trails is a prime example of such that, where it's a mixed use development where you're bringing in an anchor being the film studio, and then you have a master developer who is focused on the retail aspect and attraction into the community. So those are the types of things that we really spend more of our time focused on, but we have conversations with people all the time. And We met with a couple of property owners in downtown Douglasville that are trying to do maybe some restaurant experiences there. Met with someone yesterday afternoon. Those are things that we support folks on, but we spend most of our time kind of trying to drive investment in more of those type, more impactful developments that hopefully attract those other entities. And we're on our way. I mean, the trails is under construction. If you haven't driven down Fairburn Road recently, it is on the way to being completely cleared. The rest of that site. There's another project going on just north of that. I think they're clearing 60 acres. So the population base is starting to grow, and we're going to get more of those calls. And you're seeing some folks make investments, maybe on a smaller scale, but they're making those investments in the community because they see where the community is headed. So we're always there to support those, but we just don't go out to market for retail opportunities.
Okay, thank you. That explains a lot, and hopefully the citizens that are watching will understand that. Of course, I see the development because I'm driving around all the time. So it is a lot of homes being built here in Douglas County, as well as your studio that's going in down there, and the Lee Road project that the commissioners are working on. But you're right, it drives into business, and hopefully those that are watching will understand it a little more.
Yeah, there's folks who are looking at the opening of the Town Green Amphitheater as an opportunity for them to kind of build some retail capture around that. So there's these strategic investments that are made, they have ripple effects.
You know, you bring up a good point. It's population and income. And while there are conversations that are made, can we get a higher end, I don't know, these grocery stores, etc. But our income on average doesn't warrant it yet for an investment. Is that a true statement, Chris? We're not quite there yet, which is why we don't get, we can't look like Marietta yet. We can't look like Duluth yet. We may be aspirational toward that, but our reality as a whole population says, but we're only here yet. Is that a true statement?
We're on our way. Not there yet, but we're on our way.
Do you know what our average household income is? Or the last report that you heard?
I think our median was like 71, if I'm not mistaken. I'm wrong. I'm run off the top of my head.
No, that's close enough. So about 71,000. That's the median. Okay. All right. So then to that point, and I'm not going to belabor this, but tax commissioner brought up a good point, or open the door to, again, the balancing act between we're attracting housing, right? Another contributor to property taxes on the residential side, but also apartments, which is on obviously the commercial side. We talk about workforce development? What about workforce housing? And where do you think we are, Chris, based on your assessment? Do you see it coming online? I know every now and then you peek into our planning and zoning meetings and you pay attention to what's happening, but what do you see from your perspective? Are we keeping up? Is it enough? Talk to me.
Yeah, I know I know of one project that's going in Douglasville. I'm not fully aware of any kind of workforce housing projects right now. I think everything that's kind of looking in a more dense environment for the most part seem to be market rate housing. So obviously we've seen a lot of that, especially on Riverside Parkway, and I'm pretty sure there's other interests out there. There's some others kind of going in around on Lee Road by 20, and as well as by Preston Boulevard. So there's a significant amount of market rate multifamily development, and I get calls quite a bit from folks who are kind of doing their market studies in the area. I think we're hearing some concerns from some of our employers just about the ability to have more workforce housing, because in some instances they were having to go well out of the community, and in sometimes providing transportation for those to be able to come work at some of their facilities, just because there wasn't enough affordable income-aligned housing in the area. I mean, there's a definite balance that you have to have there in market versus, I guess, tax credit supported housing in the community. And I don't have a real handle on what our percentage is.
Got it. I mean, I know Commissioner Alvarez is chair of the residential housing. I know we got a meeting next month in which I'm the vice chair. And those are topics we're talking about. I mean, again, we're talking about how we design our community, our county, the legislative decisions that we make. Do we allow this? Do we disallow that? It is a balancing act.
I think the other thing associated with that, though, is it's probably not, you know, just around multifamily or workforce housing, but it's the other housing types that attract some of these. You know, our average wage of our employers, as you saw in that form, is significantly higher than what they committed to, and with the sectors that we're looking to attract, they're going to be above those as well. And so it's really the housing opportunities for the higher income population base that we also need to be thinking about, and how we create neighborhoods and focus investment to attract those folks. I think there's multi-layered. There's workforce, there's the middle income, and then there's the higher income.
Yes,
That's the.
Yeah,
go ahead, Commissioner.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, not to bring the residential committee conversation into this, but that was something I'm just to quickly touch on that I was going to bring up in our residential is, that's one thing some developers have come to me about, is especially the way, you know, as we talk about the different, you know, characteristics of each district. District 4, I've got quite a few developers who said, you know, we want to come in and bring some higher end housing, some bigger lot housing to District 4 and just fill them in. And I'm all for that, because, you know, just as you said, we got the workforce housing, but then too, we got to supply some higher end housing for those who are making those, you know, those upper salaries and looking to live out in our district. Anyway, so yeah, I hear you, Chris. I've got quite a few. I guess maybe it's trickled down or to some ears somewhere, but you know, it's definitely there's a need out there for as well. We're kind of short on that type of housing in our county.
Yeah, they're definitely related. Economic development and housing.
Absolutely. And again, to the tax commissioner's point, we've always had this conversation when Chris first came on board. And you can't chase everything from economic development, so that's why we came up with those sectors as a design. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there that it comes through its own organic growth. It just they find their own location and they come. But should we have somebody focus on small business development? Another version of Chris that focuses solely on trying to attract those things. And the same amount of time it takes Chris and raising them to go after a big well, the same amount of time is time for a grocery store or for a nice restaurant. It's the same amount of time. It's about time. And so his return on his time. And for our county is that, well, I can spend, you only got 8 hours in a day. All right, so it's about that return. How do you balance that? And so I get it. I always encourage the citizens, like, well, if you know someone, you know, you could be a cheerleader as well for them to come on out here and talk to us. But, you know, it's a balancing act. And I think we're on the right path. I appreciate you guys' conversation. I'm not going to belabor this. We do ask, as has been asked on this call, Chris, can you make sure at least these committee members get that data, that report? And can you summarize at the bottom for us, you know, clean up a little bit, have some averages for us? Just a little bit, but it's all right there. Can you do that for us, though?
Yeah, we'll add that, and we'll be sending that document out. We'll add that to it.
Appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm going to go around the room. I think that should satisfy us for right now. But we'll start with you, Commissioner Alvarez. Is there anything else you want to say as a closing comment before we close this out, sir?
Yeah, just a closing comment, and to piggyback off what you just said, you know, I think that's definitely something we need to discuss. Looking at assistance for some of these smaller businesses who want to start a business here in Douglas County. You know, I know we give incentives to larger businesses, but there has to be something we can do to assist some of these smaller businesses getting off the ground, some of these pops who've had a dream to open up their own restaurant and want to do it here local, or some of these food grocery stores and so forth. I really think there is a definitely something we shouldn't talk about there.
No, I appreciate that. As you're probably aware, we got that financial and entrepreneurship literacy program that's coming online. We're still working through the financial. The entrepreneurship is right behind that. And we also thank Congressman Scott, who gave us $500,000 for an incubator that we're tying that into the University of West Georgia, who's sponsoring all that. But to your point, at some point, I give you education. But at some point, they've got to do their part. And that's the part where who's going to hold that hand? Like, in other words, you have to real working. Right. In other words, but duly noted, I think we're creating an atmosphere for it. But they've got to do their part as well and come alongside of us. But let's keep working on that. I'm with you on that. Before I go, I'll make sure you own that before I leave out of here. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right, Tax Commissioner, come on. Anything, sir? I'm going around the room. Let y'all weigh in.
I think that was it for me. He's going to send us those reports. That'll be great to have. Other than that, good job.
All right, Director Balfour, you out there?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. Chris, I just have a question. I see 2 of the tax abatement parcels that are showing 2023. Do you have the MOUs out there so I can update my record to show the percentages? I think Norma and the one you spoke about, the bio.
Zoetis.
Yeah.
Zoetis is one that we will have that one later this fall. Norma, we should already have, and we'll make sure that you have that as well. We'll forward that over to you.
So it's effective as of January 1, 2023?
For both of those, yes.
All right.
And Norma would be their personal property. Their real property. Wait. Okay, the 2023. I'm sorry.
I'm seeing it in 2023.
Norma and Home Chef. Yeah, Norma and Home Chef. Yeah,
Floretis. I think it's Floretis.
Oh, so that one's 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's Norma. I think I do have Home Chef, but I'm not showing Norma. But if those 2, the 2023 ones that initially started, if I could see the MOU so I can get the allocated percentages.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I thought you had those, but we'll.
No, I don't. Is it Breezy could say if it's on the link, then I can get it.
It is, Commissioner, and it's probably listed under NDS, not Norma. NDS is the parent company, and I believe their documents are listed at NDS 465 Riverside. But regardless, it's in the link, but I can also resend it to you.
Please, those 2, the ones that begin in 2023, because I'm just seeing it. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
All right, Chris, I'm gonna give you the last word in a minute, but let me breathe you since you're still there. Breezy, so what do you feel in the day-to-day with our corporate citizens that are here, as far as being able to acclimate into Douglas County's culture, broader macro culture? Do they feel loved? What do you sense? What do you feel? Because you have direct access to all these guys once they come on board. What are you feeling?
Yeah, so the number one thing we get from them is just the business-friendly environment, and always, whenever they make a phone call, someone answers. They don't typically get the runaround. So the customer service aspect of integrating into our community is always one of the first things that they celebrate us and tell us, just what a great job we're doing, especially when it comes to planning and zoning and business licenses, and that's with the city and the county. So kudos to the staff who manages those departments, because that is one of the things we hear. The challenges are always still, for the past 5 years, has been finding that trained and qualified workforce. But what we hear back from them is that they feel like they're supported in that, and that we do everything they think we could do as a community and as an organization, an economic development organization, to support them in finding those individuals. There's always going to be hiccups along the way, but I think how we approach those hiccups and navigate them and assist them in navigating them speaks to our commitment to our business community. So That's what we hear. I will tell you, we have our annual industry survey is happening right now. So come end of the year, we'll have a lot more anecdotal data from our business community speaking to what it is they're doing and where we can support. So I'm excited to release that information sometime in late October, early November.
No, I appreciate that. Very good response. And so, lastly, again, back to the workforce development, back to the exchange, back to giving these incentives for jobs. And to your point, we're looking for a trained workforce. And what I'm hearing you say is that via the chamber, through you guys' effort, we're creating that atmosphere. But what is the actual workforce saying? Is it the types of jobs they don't want to do, they're not qualified, or is it more attitudinal? I just don't want to do it that way anymore. What are you seeing? Because I hear it, but I'm sensing a shift attitudinally about work in general, and that younger generation that's coming online. That as my boomers are beginning to move on to the next level in their life, the next life stage. What do you see by way of that?
Not to give a dissertation in what is happening in workforce development, but I will say that what we have found is that 20 years ago the narrative was you must go to college to be successful. And so parents like myself, who has a sophomore in college, we came through that kind of space. And what we're finding, and what we know the data to be true, is that 55% of all jobs don't require a 4-year degree. But because our narrative to our youth and to our 20 and 30 year olds has been go get that 4-year degree, we are seeing a decline in those trained, qualified trade skills. And in Douglas County specifically, those jobs are the ones that tend to pay the higher family sustaining wages. So in manufacturing, for instance, the average hourly wage is $31 an hour, and our county average hourly wage is $25.86. And manufacturing jobs require a high school diploma or GED with some stackable industry recognized credentials. So I think what we're doing in workforce development is creating a workforce system that encapsulates us as an economic development organization, our education partners, our employers, and our nonprofit community in order to create this continuum of care, if you will, for our job seekers, so that if there are barriers to employment, we have the nonprofit sector there at the table to offer their assistance. If there's a training component that's missing, our schools are there. Obviously, the employers are there providing their advice, and then us as the economic development organization acts as the convener. We're not the decision makers, but it is our job to convene these types of organizations together to create a holistic approach to solving these issues.
Awesome. Thank you for that. That wasn't a dissertation. You're good at that. You did that in 3 minutes. You go faster than I do. Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Gracie. Chris, close us out, sir. Any final comments, thoughts?
Yes, sir. So just on your all small business effort, we have through Elevate, one of the things that we wanted to really focus on was small business and entrepreneurship, because as we see kind of the trajectory and future of things, at some point there's not going to be enough land to do all of this development, and we really need to be leaning in to grow more entrepreneurs in the community. So that was a funding effort that we put in place. And with that, we brought on a director of entrepreneurship and small business that we dually support through the chamber. Her name is Lawana Ross, and so she started a few months ago. And her sole role is working through the strategic plan for small business and entrepreneurship, and to work alongside and on the efforts that you all are doing as well. So that is in place. We are also looking at engagement with an organization based outside of, I think they're based out of Ohio. They have some offices here, about establishing kind of a satellite here and a partnership with us to support small businesses and entrepreneurs as well. So it is definitely a strong effort and focus of ours. It's not the folks on this call, we're not directly doing all that work, but we are allocating resources to support that. And so that's where we see a great opportunity. The city also has a manager of economic development as well, and he's doing a lot of work kind of looking in downtown Douglasville and also in other arenas that also touch that retail and restaurant component. So there are pieces in there. It's just not our group as a whole that's doing it, but we're working in supporting of those entities.
No, I got it. Thank you for that, Chris. And it sounds like there's a lot of there's some efforts going on in 2 or 3 different areas, and that's great. Eventually, it'll all come together. That point, to Commissioner Alvarez's point. Last thing, I cannot have this call without letting you go. The mall. How are we doing on the mall? What is from a commercial perspective, Chris? How are we doing on the mall? I get that question quite often, and I think that really is in Commissioner Alvarez's district. But talk to me about the mall and the future development, and just, I mean, is there any thoughts on it? Or we just leave them alone?
I mean, there are thoughts, but there's only but so much we can do. You know, it's a publicly traded company that owns the mall. Well, actually, I don't know if maybe they are still publicly traded. I know they've gone for bankruptcy, and I don't know if they came back to being publicly traded or not. But they own the mall. They have a lot of assets across the country that they have been focused on from a redevelopment standpoint. We see the directions that some malls are heading. Some are completely reinventing themselves. Some are still surviving. Ours, from a leasing standpoint, if you look at leasing as a metric, it is almost fully leased. And so that's one metric that you can look at. But the other aspect of it is it the quality and things that we want to have in the community? And that's a different topic, different question. So, we continue to support CBL, and we have dialogue with them, and they know some of the concerns of the community, but they are definitely good partners, and at the right point in time, we'll hopefully be able to work on something together.
Okay, we'll leave that for another standalone topic by itself. All right, guys, thank you all for joining us.
Commissioner, just real quick.
Yeah.
Chris, the new director or the new individual you hired for small business, I would like to meet that individual at some point.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We actually would love to do kind of I was talking to Tiffany about this. We'd love to do maybe like an overall presentation about all the things that we have going on that relate to economic development, specifically for the Board of Commissioners. So we're working on piecing all that together, but the introduction of her, that would be completely separate. But we just want to make sure we also do more broad presentation. It just triggered my mind.
Sure. Thank you. All right, I yield back to you, Chair.
No problem. To the point, don't feel bad, Commissioner Alfred. I haven't met her either. So, Chris, both of us, you need to come for the Board of Commissioners on that one. All right, guys. With that being said, thank you guys for joining this August 24th, 2023 Economic Development and Tax Abatement Committee meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. With nothing else being said and this agenda being set.